I don't think they're a member, period, of
I
this.
think they are, aren't they?
They're a member of every committee, I think.
But we're a different kind of
But they're
committee
not
than the
voting,
commission.
most of them, they
meetings.
don't have to vote in.
All right, it is 7 o'clock. We will call this March meeting of the Hartsville-Travis County Planning Commission to order. Roll call, Mr. Secretary. Well, you can just look at just use the sign-in sheet if you want to. Everybody's here but Heather.
There with the,
Yeah. Approval of minutes. We've had the minutes for a while. Had plenty of time to look over. Has anybody noticed any corrections or additions that need to be made? You do have a copy, I think, in your packet also.
Are y'all ready for a roll call?
make a motion to approve the minutes.
Well, you just use that.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
I have a motion to approve the minutes. Okay, that's gonna ask for discussion, but we don't usually do that on minutes. Have a second by Mr. Thomas. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Last month's minutes are approved. Are there any changes, any additions to the agenda that anybody knows anything about? Okay, we will then set our agenda then is what's set in front of us. Having no public hearings or old business, we'll go right on into new business. First item, under rezoning request by Mary Lynn Clarity from A1 to R1-A1 on Highway 10 of 5.01 acres to separate 2 acres off and add the remainder to the adjacent parcel that they own in the 3rd Civil District. Is anyone here to speak for Ms. Clarity?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Clarity, so Ms. Clarity owns 2 5-acre tracts right there on the corner of Woodmore Hollow and Highway 10 right there. She's looking to sell off a couple acres on the northmost tract and keep the remainder with the rest of her. So in other words, basically, she's not going to be creating a new building lot. She's going to sell off 2 acres and then basically have a 8-acre tract left altogether.
Are the 2 acres she wants to sell up past her house?
Yes, sir.
Up the-
Up there, I don't know if you're familiar with driving just past her house. She's got a field there that's got like a old well house in it right there. And yeah,
The name of that
That
road
open
escapes
field.
me, but
that open field right
Yeah.
there.
Be that right there.
Yeah, was what she's looking to do. She owns this right here. She's wanting to sell off a couple acres up here in the front
Oh, okay,
and keep this back here
Oh,
with her house.
all right.
any questions for Jim? Okay. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if she's wanting to combine, so she's just gonna, it's 5 acres, so we can cut it off, make the front half R1, and then the A1 on the back just gets joined to her other property? Am I following this correctly?
I think that's right,
Yes,
Jim.
yes, sir. Because her current house is A1.
Yeah.
Right now, yes.
Okay.
That's the way that's the way I understood it, but
I mean,
Jim's
it's
here to
one of
clarify.
these things where we'll have to get her legal description before it goes through the county commission process and everything. But yes, the R1 will be separate, and the A1 part will be added to her house.
So there is no road frontage issue then,
No,
if that's other, okay.
any other questions? Discussion? Motions? Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Make a motion to send
Just
this
with
to
a
the
favorable
county
approval.
commission with a favorable recommendation.
I'll second it.
Second by Mitch. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. It will be sent to the county commission with a favorable recommendation. And if we have anyone new here tonight, there's 3 options that the planning commission has. We can send rezoning requests to the planning commission with a favorable recommendation, a negative recommendation, or we can just send it.
Did the state have any comments on
I'm sorry?
it? Did the state have any comments on it? I didn't have any comments beyond the usual, just sort of context.
Next, rezoning of 5.13 acres by Anthony Natale. Hope I said that right.
Very nice.
Okay, good. From A1 to C1, 5.13 acres of 212 acres that are on Halltown Road. And he would like to build a commercial building, and this is in the 7th Civil District. Mr. Natale, would you come to the podium there and tell us what you'd like to do, sir?
Good evening, everyone. So I'm looking to build a commercial building for storage for some of my trucks and that are stored during the off-peak season of my business. So I was looking to carve out a small area on one section of the farm that I have to accommodate that use. Does anyone have any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Mr.
Is it
Natale?
just for storage, or will you be running the business out of it?
Well, I mean, if it gets rezoned for that, obviously.
It would just be for storage. So we have one team member that's at the farm now that primarily takes care of the cattle that's there today, and may move the trailers from time to time to a location for other team members to pick it up, but they would be housed there, and there would be very minimal traffic there, so that would be the intended use for that.
Are you on Halltown with that new fence that's down through there?
Yes, sir.
I just have to tell you, that's beautiful. You made that very, very attractive.
Thank you. We take a great deal of pride in our work and certainly this beautiful town, so I want to make it look nice and be welcome.
But on behalf of the county, we appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Now that I'm through complimenting, does anybody have any questions of any kind? If that is true, it is really true.
If he's just gonna use it for storage of equipment, does he even have to have it rezoned?
That's what I was just looking into. So is it going to be used, the storages of agricultural equipment for, no?
No,
So it's, do you have any idea of what you're storing in it? Is it vehicles, you mentioned trailers?
so yes. Yeah, so my primary business is in the insurance space, claims management. So I handle claims for insurance companies, could be anywhere from 50 claims to 10,000 claims that come in overnight, usually after some type of like weather event. So we use different types of assets and resources to deploy to areas all over the planet, but in particular for North America. They're housed here, they're sent to areas where there's those types of weather events, so like Texas all the way up, and they just constantly need maintenance, right? So we try to keep them out of the weather when they're not being used and maintain them. As you can imagine, anything sitting out in the sun can break down or just wear over time. And then we have Sprinter vans that are in our fleet. Most of our technicians, you keep them at their residence, but there's some that can't make it due to storage of their residences, so they'll either stay here, or when we're bringing them off the road to bring on new trailers or vans or some type of asset that's in an automobile space would be housed there. So
Okay, well, so to your point, then, I think it would need to be rezoned because it wouldn't be necessarily agricultural equipment that's associated with an agricultural use. But motor vehicles and automotive equipment, there's the use, which I'm not sure exactly what they mean by use of
Well,
motor
he was
vehicles.
talking about rehabbing them.
Right, that sounds-
repairing and
yeah.
stuff, so it could be,
I think it's sort of all things associated to motor vehicles and automotive use and their
Right.
accessory uses
Right.
are allowed within the C1. So I think it would match that use most closely.
And he also had in there too, in his business plan that's included in your packet, that he was intending to set up an office as well out there for his transport company.
Hopefully facing the cows, facing the beautiful pastures in the back.
What size building are you?
This would be approximately 10,000 square feet.
questions for Mr. Natale? Discussion?
Any issues with this gas line?
I'm the project server, Paul Crock. Yeah, we're gonna have to work around it. But I've been in contact with the gas company. We don't know if we're gonna set it in the back. We get this through zoning, we'll come with a site plan. That doesn't help us any, but we can work around. We have road, it's the reason we've got 5 acres. We can work around the gas line. Yeah, because you know, we get so close.
Well, and like he was talking about, once,
Conversation.
if it gets rezoned, then of course, they would come back with a site plan and that type of things, where you would see more of the details.
Motion approved.
Because they have anything said to it?
Well, she just got through, but you want to add anything else?
I mean, I can run through the notes. In your packets, I have sort of the usual context that I typically provide. But just to reiterate, it's a request to go from A1 agricultural forestry to C1 commercial for 5.13 acres of a 212 acre lot, located at unaddressed Halltown Road, identified as tax map 19 parcel 10. Property is currently vacant. The surrounding properties are zoned A1 and I1 general industrial. The property is not within the Hartsville-Trousdale Water and Sewer Utility District. However, the adjoining lot does contain a water tower and a 12-inch line that is located along the front of this property, and a 6-inch water line that runs to the corner of the southernmost point of this property. The property does not have access to public sewer, and Halltown Road is identified as a collector street for the major thoroughfare plan. Then I've also included the zoning district standards for the agricultural forestry district and the general commercial, which includes all those permitted uses. And there's a 30,000 square foot lot requirement for lots with public water and no public wastewater, and 5.13 acres more than covers that.
I think what Thomas was getting at, do you have a recommendation? Is that what you was wanting to know? Did you have one?
My recommendation, I see no reason why not, so it is up to the will of the board.
That road is quickly becoming industrial. So, I mean, to me, it fits in with the future uses I see out that way. That's my opinion. Questions?
I'll
Comments?
second Mr. Nolner's motion.
Okay, so I have a motion, make sure I say this right, because you didn't elaborate, by Mr. Noller to send this to the county commission what's the- favorable.
Recommendation.
Favorable recommendation, and a second by Mr. Thomas on the favorable recommendation part. Any other questions, discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Does pass unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is a rezoning request by Matthew Carmen from R1 to C2. This is on Highway 25, 0.91 acres for development, and this is in the 7th civil district. Jim, you representing you?
I guess, he's here if you wanna ask him any questions. He said he paid me to get up here and talk about these things.
You need to earn your money, but.
It's not real money tonight. Okay, this is out on the, out next to, I'm blanking right there. Hickory Ridge, yes. This was rezoned back, I don't know, a long time ago to resident R1, or is it R1. And then, once again, it could be debated whether that was a good idea at the time or not. According to stuff I've heard, that probably wasn't a good idea at the time, so Matthew's looking to bring it back into C1 to line up with all the, I guess that's C2, excuse me, to line up with all the rest of the stuff going on out in that part of the world up and down the main road right there.
Okay. So if I understand Jim correctly, Matthew is he's asking for a rezoning request to bring the zoning of this in line with probably his future plans for it and with what's currently out there.
Yeah, I
at
think
this
we've
time.
left everything up through there that we've been doing. We preserved all the commercial along
Right,
the
right.
roadway and done residential in the back on stuff here lately in the last few years.
Okay. Any questions for, I guess it's Jim since he's now on the clock. Tommy, did you have a question? Oh, I thought. Okay. Any questions for Jim? Discussion? Keelan?
I can run through it. So like you said, this is a request to go from R1 residential to C2 commercial for a lot of 0.91 acres. It's located on unaddressed Highway 25. Property is currently vacant. The surrounding properties are zoned C2 highway commercial, R3, and R1 residential. The property is within the Hartsville-Trousdale Water and Sewer Utility District, and a 12-inch and an 8-inch line are located along Highway 25, but the property does not have access to public sewer. And Highway 20.
It does too.
Yes, it's got a sewer line right across the face of it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well then that is something that needs to be updated in my map. Highway 25 is identified as an arterial street, and I've included the zoning district standards for the R1 and the C2. And based on the minimum lot size for the C2, which is 10,000 square foot, if at some point they wish to subdivide this property and make multiple commercial lots, it could possibly have 3 C2 commercial lots on it.
Any questions for Keelan? Discussion? Comments? Motions?
Make a motion that we send this on to favorable.
Have a motion by Mr. Thomas to send this to the county commission with a favorable recommendation.
I can second that.
Have a second by Ms. Pruitt. Any other discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. Does pass unanimously. And our last rezone on the book tonight, on the agenda tonight, is a rezoning request by Brian Crook from A1 to R1 at 1575 Skillet Creek Road of 3.01 acres. He wished to separate a house and 1 acre to sell in the 4th district. And I'm assuming since he's handing out paperwork, Jim's representing Mr. Crook.
Mr. Crook is here to answer any questions that you might have for him, but we have surveyed the property, and so I just wanted to sort of give you an aerial view of it. Mr. Crook owns 3 acres right here, where his house is, and also the land where it says line to be removed. He has 1 acre and 4/10 fenced in, which we're looking to rezone. That includes his septic system. His father owns the adjoining property that his came out of, looking to add that 1 acre and 6/10 back in that they already maintain inside the farm area there. If that makes sense.
Okay. Questions for Jim or Mr. Crook, since Brian's here?
Can you, do you mind just clarifying, is it the 3.01 acres you're requesting to rezone or this 1.4?
Just the 1.4.
Just the 1.4.
Just 1.4. They're wanting to add the remainder of this back here. This is already fenced off. They're wanting to sell this and keep this back here in agriculture.
Oh, I got
Okay.
it.
I will add that that is gonna be that's the 8th district instead of the 4th.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you, bro.
And basically what this is, y'all, I'm trying to save the land. My dad passed away. We're going back, we're gonna sell our house, we're going back to the old house on 141.
Oh.
We're gonna remodel it, go back home.
Sounds reasonable. Any questions for Jim or Brian before we go to Keelan? All right, Keelan?
All right, so, like we've already said, this is for, 1.4 acres at 1575 Skillet Creek Road. They are requesting rezoning from A1 agriculture forestry to R1 residential. The property is currently has a single family residence on it. The surrounding properties are zoned A1 agriculture forestry. The property is not within the Hartsville Trousdale Water and Sewer Utility District, but a 4-inch water line is located along Skillet Creek Road. Skillet Creek Road is identified as a collector street. And I've included the A1 and R1 district descriptions. So for a single family house without public wastewater, the required minimum lot size is an acre. So this would only be allowed to be divided into one, or wouldn't be allowed to be divided further after the 1.4 is cut off.
Questions for Keelan?
Repeat that last part you said again.
So the minimum lot size for a single family house with public water and without public wastewater is 1 acre. So once they cut off the 1.4 that they're asking, it wouldn't be able to be divided anymore.
The house on the 1.4.
Yeah, that 1.4, they'd need 2 acres minimum to chop it up anymore.
Right.
Questions? Discussion?
Motion to approve the favorable recommendation.
I have a motion by Ms. Pruitt to send this to the county commission.
Second.
Oh, I thought you had a question. With a favorable recommendation, second by Mr. Nolan. Any other discussion and or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. It does pass. All right, that's our rezonings for tonight. Next is our, under site plan approval for Matthew Carmen on Halltown Road of 5.12 acres for a commercial building in the 7th Civil District.
Okay, do y'all have
Should have.
copies?
They have the newest one you sent out today?
Yeah, that's fine. There's very little difference between the two of those. I just didn't know if you received the whole one. Anyway, so Matthew is needing a storage building in town. And basically to replace where he sold the Fred's building and what he had used the rear of it for. So he's looking at building the storage building out behind the old Wagner house back in the middle of this. He has 26 or 27 acres out there, back in there, and accessing it up the existing driveway right there. And that's basically the gist of it.
You're gonna use the existing drive
Yeah,
to,
going in.
it's there now?
Yes, let's go.
To get back to
Yes,
it?
yes,
Okay, I thought that's what you said. I just.
yes, that's what I said. So
Be back kind of back past where the pool used to be.
be back in the area where the pool was.
That
yes.
old,
Yeah.
smokehouse. Or
Yeah, he
one of the
said something
log
about a
building.
smokehouse. There's no smokehouse.
No, they removed it last.
I was about to say, I don't believe there's any building, but he.
There used to be.
Used to be, yeah.
I look over there sometimes when I'm going into church and it's changed over. Okay, any questions for Jim or Matthew? Okay, Keelan?
All right, so this is a site plan for an unnamed commercial development at 109 Halltown Road. It's identified as tax map 19 parcel 29, and the overall property is 24.3 acres. There, the site plan covers a size of 5.12 acres, and I believe it has been deeded off, correct?
Yes.
So it is
It has
a
been
lot,
This has been separated into its own parcel.
so it is a lot of 5.12 acres. It is zoned C2 highway commercial and currently has a house that is planned to be demolished. The surrounding properties are zoned for commercial. Uses, and the property has access to a 6-inch water line along Halltown Road, and an 8-inch sewer line is extended north along Halltown Road to the southernmost part of this property. So the buffer strips, my zoning map was incorrect, so there is no buffer strip required. There's only commercial development abutting this property. There are 2 remaining site plan issues in the most recent set of comments, which I hope are the ones that you guys all have in front of you. And those are, we've asked that they show the dimensions of the parking and loading areas, as well as the dimensions of all parking stalls, including any ADA accessible spaces, and include a location of the area subject to flooding. So looking at the Tennessee Property Viewer flood map, it does look like there is
No, I checked it this morning. This lot doesn't get back that far.
It doesn't go all the way to the
No,
back?
No, it doesn't
Okay.
go all the way to the back.
All right.
No, there's still we stopped short of hitting the residential back there. We're several hundred feet from that area, so it doesn't get into it back there.
Okay, well then ignore.
And as to the parking spots, that's no problem. I can dimension everything that needs to be dimensioned on the.
So
Yeah.
then, on your staff notes, only, comment A will be applicable.
Questions for Keelan? Discussion? While you're looking it over, see if you have questions for Keelan, Jim, or Matthew, since they're all here.
There is one, thing I did notice that I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention. The water line, so there is a manhole that is at where the existing driveway goes. I believe the intent is, it's a ingress, egress, and utility easement, so I believe it's their intent to bring the water line up through that easement to
That's
the
correct.
house?
The water and sewer, yes.
Okay, so just to be aware that that would be in an easement.
I haven't looked in a while. The new road going in, is this below the driveway or is it even with it? You know, where the state's doing their red light?
They went in right there at the driveway.
That's okay.
It ends just right there past the driveway. They've actually constructed right there in.
Okay, kind of started at and
Yeah.
moved down towards the intersection.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll finish that one of these days.
It's gonna be nice.
Well, they got to get them new poles in to hold the red lights up.
We started on that today.
Questions for anybody?
And do you have plans for the ADA parking?
I mean, I don't know that it needs. You tell me what it needs. I mean, I don't,
What was the
I mean,
question?
I can put it,
The
we can put
ADA
something on
parking?
there, I suppose.
Yeah,
ADA
it's
parking.
proposed to be used for storage with minor receiving and pickup, so I'm not sure exactly what the storage requirements are for ADA parking, but we just need to double check that. And I can- It may be like one ADA accessible.
That won't be an
Yeah,
issue.
all it is just a slightly wider
Yeah,
stall.
I know how to grow it on there. It won't be an issue. You just need to tell me how many.
Are you gonna let him know that?
I can look it up while we're
Oh, okay.
discussing it.
It don't look like we're gonna have much discussion. If I had to guess.
You're gonna have to type
The bunch has
fast.
been kind of quiet tonight. I think the cold's got them.
Because we're saving your energy for all this lighting talk.
Well, yeah, it could be for the discussion period later. Does anybody, while Keelan's looking that up, does anybody have a discussion or question for anybody?
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan.
Because with the,
There is one area that they need, that he has to just get back to you,
with the,
pending, yeah,
pending the,
right. I believe it was number A, was that right, Keely?
Yeah, just A.
So I have a motion by Mitch to approve this pending the correction of comment A or the addition, whatever it is. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Pruitt. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no.
And I can get back to you with
That's
that,
fine,
Jim.
that's fine. Just shoot me an email.
Just
No
take-
big deal.
You won't take a minute, should I?
No, I think I'm gonna have to look it up in the actual ADA,
Oh,
requirements.
okay. All right, next is a sketch plat approval for Dustin Marcelino on Western Avenue of 6.19 acres for 6 lots in the 7th Civil District.
I assume that y'all have copies of this. You need a bigger copy, I'd be glad to have it.
Should be this one right
We've
here.
got that.
Y'all got that, so this is just a sketch plat, y'all will wind up seeing this 2 more times at a minimum. Mr. Marcelino is, looking to subdivide this, 6 acres into 6, residential lots. This sits just north of the old boot factory building there, and this is actually the running track, field, you know what I'm talking about right there on Western Avenue, and be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Jim, I mean, Dave?
Jim, on this one, are they laying this out just the same way it was previously brought to us when they busted this property up into 6 lots? Or are they changing the lot sizes on this one?
I'm not familiar with that. I've never brought anything to you, so I don't know.
Is
I
this
thought
not
you
where the
brought that.
apartments?
This is
It
where they
is.
were trying to
It is.
rezone.
Before that,
And before that, I
they
don't,
brought this in.
I don't.
Did they ever
know.
bring us a plan for it?
They did, they brought us, and that's why when they did the apartment deal, I thought it was already busted into 6 lots.
That was probably before Mr. Marcelino, and I wonder if they didn't bring you in an exhibit for a rezone, because it got rezoned to R1.
They did.
It was whatever the boot factory is.
Yeah, I remember, and they got a rezone
They may have
four
brought an
homes.
exhibit, but I don't believe it's ever actually been brought in here through the planning process to cut up.
Okay,
That I'm aware of, I haven't, so.
okay.
It was ever,
Yeah, and I think that was the issue, it never got recorded, but they did bring it before us for like a preliminary.
I have
And then
no
it
idea.
just,
Okay.
my only concern is that 6 lot, is there enough building envelope there at the front?
There is, I mean, I suppose they could put it back in the flood zone area, but yes, there's enough building envelope to build a 1,500 square foot, 2,000 square foot house right there and be inside the setbacks, but it will have to be a little closer to the road than I would like to see it as far as, but it will still meet setback requirements and all that.
That's just on lot 6.
That's on lot 6, yes, and of course, everything past that, it just gets further and further away.
Other questions? Okay. Did I come to you?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That's all right. All right, so like we said, this is a sketch plat, so we will see it for a preliminary plat and a final plat again. It is located at unaddressed Western Avenue, consists of approximately 6.19 acres and is zoned R1 residential, and the property is currently vacant. So the surrounding properties are zoned for agricultural and residential uses. This property is within the Hartsville-Trousdale Water and Sewer Utility District. There's an 8-inch sewer line that's located along Western Avenue, as well as along the western edge of this property. So it runs kind of down the back of it. There's an 8-inch water line that extends along Western Ave and a 12-inch water line that runs along the western edge of this property, so along the back. Western Ave is identified as a local street. So the minimum lot area for the R1 zoning district is 12,000 square feet for a single family unit. All of the proposed lots are greater than 12,000 square feet. And the only remaining plat issue is asking that they include the name of the property owner.
Of course, this is a scale. Would this require a fire hydrant when we get that call? I just wondered.
It depends on where the nearest fire hydrants are.
Okay, I didn't know, I know where, I'm jumping the gun, I understand.
Yeah, I think there's 2 or 3 of them on Western, right off the top of
Well,
my
that's
head.
me, I couldn't either, that's
I
why I
can't tell
didn't.
you, but I believe it's sufficiently covered, but we will check into that
Yeah.
and make sure.
And Tommy,
They are.
They're good.
There's about 3 down, starting from the old
I
boot.
should have known to go to the bar.
They're there.
Okay, good. All right, so, Mr. Marcelino is asking for, sketch plat approval for these 6 lots on Western Avenue. Any questions and or discussion at this time? Motions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion by Mr. Thomas to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second by Ms. Pruitt. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Motion does pass. Next is final plat approval for Freedom Estates. This is located on Bass Road, 34.96 acres of 16 lots. And this is in the 6th Civil District. I believe this is Mr. Fleming, if I'm not mistaken.
Good evening. We got a good batting average here, so just try to keep it on a roll. You all have seen this before, in preliminary and sketch. I think we've got all the housekeeping items taken care of for the final plat. And I'm here to answer any questions, comments, concerns.
Any questions for Mr. Fleming? Keeler?
So this will be the 3rd time I've read this to you, but this is a final plat approval, so it is the last time we will see it. And this is for a 16-lot subdivision on Bass Road. The property is approximately 34.96 total acres and is zoned R1. The surrounding properties are zoned for agricultural and residential uses. The property is outside the Hartsville-Trousdale Water and Sewer Utility District, but a 4-inch water line supplied by the Castellan Springs / Bethpage Water Utility does appear to be located nearby on Bass Road. Sewer does not appear to be available in this area. Bass Road is identified as a minor street. Minimum lot area per dwelling unit with public water but without public sewer is 1 acre, and all proposed lots are greater than 1 acre. And as Mr. Fleming said, we did clear up all housekeeping issues, so there are no outstanding comments.
Sounds great. Questions for Mr. Fleming or Keeler? Motions? Mr. Thomas? Have a motion by Mr. Thomas to approve. Do I have a second? Oh, Mitch, okay. Have a second by Mr. Gregory. All in favor, please, I'm sorry. Any other discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. It does pass. Next is some amendments that we've been working on for some time. First one is an amendment to the zoning ordinance of Hartsville by adding section 4.142 to create ADA parking lot design requirements. I believe this was our discussions from 2 months ago.
Yes, so this will be the 3rd iteration in our system of snowballing them. You got that, actually? Okay, so we're going slightly in a different order, but so this, oh, you have it, sorry. All right, so we will see another ordinance here in a moment that will be to create section 4.140. So this would be a new section within the general standards chapter of the zoning ordinance. This would be one called like general commercial and industrial design guidelines. So I figured that was sort of the best option for us of where we wanted to put all these new design regulations that we're coming up with, if you guys agree. So that'll be in the next ordinance. This ordinance is within that to create section 4.142, which is going to be the section that is regulating the ADA parking requirements that we discussed. So I can actually pull up our discussion items from last time, so I can remind us what has been changed since last time we saw it. Give me 2 seconds.
Basically, we're just staying with the ADA standard.
We are changing some of the language, I've cleared up the, parking stall size. So Jim, for, the, upcoming, commercial development you've got, the, minimum parking stall then is 96 inches wide, 18 feet wide, and the minimum aisle is what we're calling it, 60 inches wide, and the length of the adjacent parking stall. So that was the only change that we noted from the last time you all saw it. Everything else is the same. Yeah, up to you guys. I guess the biggest question is whether it seems most appropriate to put it in as its own section, and then each of these standards be their own section on like 4.142 within that.
Y'all have a preference? I mean,
Yeah, we can,
bring them in as its own section, then it's easier to change later if need be, or, whatever in the future.
it made sense in my brain as the way that I
I
look
think
at
so
zoning
too.
ordinances.
Y'all agree?
Yeah.
Okay. And again, we've been discussing the ADA parking that, I know it has been a couple of months, but she's taken our information that we've agreed on and given her and taken back and got it up into, ordinance, form to send to the county commission. So if this passes tonight, then its next stop will be the county commission for it to send as the way they do business.
So Keely, on this one, for the 4.142, this is Hartsville, Trousdale, so this is the Hartsville zoning. Are you also have one for the Trousdale, for the county also?
Well, I believe we discussed that this would be applicable to commercial and industrial within Hartsville, within city limits at this point.
Well, since we're working on trying to combine them,
Yeah.
It will need to be adjusted when that comes up. Right now, this is just for the Hartsville zoning district.
we couldn't just add the word Trousdale or make it legal, or, I don't know, I don't want to do it wrong, I'm just.
No, we could add it to both. We could do 2 ordinances per update. If
Being
you
that we have
guys,
commercial in the county also, it just makes sense if we're gonna do this. It gets us to federal standards, that we be federal standards across the board.
Just keep them consistent, yeah.
okay. Is that something we want just for this one, or is that kind of going forward
I think going forward,
for all of them?
Until we can get everything unified, then we can just be doing the one Hartsville, Trousdale, and
Right.
just move on from there.
but I think, don't y'all agree, going forward, since we're looking at the unification future, we want to, all of the things that we pass to move that way, to be thinking Hartsville and Trousdale County.
I would agree.
Right.
Well, then in that case, I will have to bring before you a Trousdale ordinance maybe
Well, it's
next
gonna
month.
say the same thing.
Yeah, it'll say. the
It
same.
will, but it'll have a different ordinance number and all
That's
those
okay,
things.
we can still pass it.
Okay,
So why
all
would
right.
we?
Then you just email it to Rosalie, I guess, or she needs to print it out, and then, if that's okay with everybody. It's just, that way they can go through together.
Yeah, I think.
And it'd be less, I think it'd be less confusing.
And all our other ordinances that we've been sending through have been that way. We've been sending one for the county, one for urban.
Right,
urban,
right.
just-
Everybody agree?
As long as we in order, all right.
Okay,
No problem.
okay. So is everybody comfortable with the wording of 4.142? Motions? If no discussion, motions? We're asking for a motion to send this on to the county commission for their approval.
I make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Thomas to send this to the county commission for their approval. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Harper. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Okay. Next is,
Send the county commission for approval, right?
Next, we're amend the zoning ordinance of Hartsville, Tennessee, Article 4, by adding section 4.141-1.140, creating a commercial and industrial design guidelines section with article, is that within Article 4 or with Article 4? Creating a tree preservation and maintenance requirements section. And again, we've talked about this at length, although it has been a couple of months. But this is the part where we discussed trees on commercial property, industrial property, replacing trees that have to be cut down, protecting certain trees and that type of thing. We've been over this in great detail, and we can do so again if somebody wants to, but
Well,
we have discussed this quite a bit. Eva?
there are just a couple of little changes from the last time you guys have seen this.
Okay.
So we did have a couple of notes last time, and those are the things that are highlighted in yellow. So this ordinance kind of combines two things. So the first one is to create section 4.140, which should just be called Commercial and Industrial Design Guidelines. That's the overarching section. And then the first one is going to be 4.141, which is the tree preservation, and then the next will be the ADA that we just did. So within the tree preservation and maintenance requirements, the things that have changed, we have added this very first applicability section, which just says that tree preservation and maintenance requirements are applicable to all development within any commercial or industrial zoning district. Then we've also added, we wanted to add the words continuous within the existing vegetation and buffer yards. So that section now reads, existing trees within the required buffer yards may be counted towards a maximum of 50% of the required shrubs and or trees. Credit preference is given to stands of trees, which we decided was 5 or more clustered together, or trees of significant size, which we decided was 10 inches or greater. Then we've added, when existing vegetation is used to meet a portion of the buffer yard landscaping requirements, all planted landscaping must be located so that the combination of existing vegetation and landscaping creates a continuous buffer within the required buffer yards. So I'm hoping that that language accomplishes what we were looking for.
What we just wanted to make sure that the buffer is continuous
Right.
all along the buffer line.
What including
Right,
rulings and
right.
gaps.
Didn't have, taking away the possibility of gaps.
Right, didn't want to allow it to be patchy. The other thing we did, we've just added that section D, we added the word existing, so it's existing tree preservation plan, and that was to clear up any sort of confusion about whether, it was slightly ambiguous about whether it was required for all development or just for development that was intending to use the tree credit. So then we've also added to receive credit for existing trees counted towards the buffer yard landscaping requirements. A tree preservation plan shall be submitted as part of the landscaping plan. So that's just to clarify that it's not necessary for all development, just when you want to get some sort of credit for maintaining trees.
What do you think, guys? Those look good, doesn't it? And she's taken our discussions and hit the nail on the head. Again, we want to head these, one for the city and one for the county.
Yep, I've got a note to make that for all of these.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If you would like to speak, I'd like to recognize Matthew Carmen there, if he has any comments or questions on this proposed ordinance.
Probably comments that don't need to be tonight, so I'll thank you for the opportunity, but I'll pass. So,
You have the, if you want to.
I haven't seen this. The only thing I would ask is, in a tree preservation, is there any opportunity to take down an existing tree and then plant additional trees to offset that? That would be one question I would have for you guys, because
Yes, sir.
it would be a shame to take a tree to stop a commercial potential in our small county where we have limited commercial anyways, and not have the opportunity to produce trees.
We discussed all that.
Yeah, that's in there, it just wasn't changed from last time, so I didn't bring it up, but we do have different requirements for different caliber trees and when they may be removed or not.
But that's a good question, I mean.
I haven't seen what y'all are reviewing, that was just something that kind of came to mind, so.
Oh, that's a very good point.
And the only,
Again, tonight, we're just going over things that we changed last time that she's brought up, you know, because we
We'll
have
be here all
been.
night.
Yeah, we're here a long
We
time.
have been all night some nights, haven't we?
and in this, the only tree we're saying that shall be preserved are 24 inches and bigger.
And then we do have the note that deviation requires a variance from the BZA.
Right.
So
So there's
There
still
is
that
still a
possibility.
passage around that tree.
Right. I mean,
that's a big tree.
we would all,
I just hope y'all ready to see some trees come down.
well, I mean, we're hoping not to,
I understand.
you know, but, the last thing we want to do is lose a good entity, but, you know, so therefore the variances and that kind of stuff. Okay. Any other discussion? That's a very good point. Thank you, Matthew, for bringing that up. Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to send it to full commission for favorable approval.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Thomas to send this to the county commission for its approval.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pruitt. Any other discussion and or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Does pass. Next is our continuing discussions, which we've been doing for several months, which may have cost us a member, as I understand. Well, you know, when you start going into doing things like this, it's very time consuming. And we all pretty much have decided we'd rather do it on the night while we're here already, as to come in another time and do it instead. And so our discussion points tonight, we started last month with talking about, we looked at some things from different counties and cities around, talking about commercial building designs and, I mean, you know, materials and that type of thing. Down on our agenda tonight is the public hearing for sign design approval, building design guidelines, and codes and zoning discussion. I guess we'll just take them in order there. Sign design approval. Keita, would you like to?
Rosalie, you wanna?
Rosalie?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Basically, we wanted to bring back these signs here for you to look at to see what is really needed. Does this design look, is it eye-catching? Will this catch people's attention for when we start doing rezoning requests and, say, change of use, signs that need to be posted on the property? Sometimes, you know, with all the different signs that are out there, is this going to catch people's attention so that they know that, hey, something is going on? I mean, starting May 1st, rezoning signs are going to be required. Change of use signs will be required. So just looking at everybody's, yes.
Just to explain that, on the last vote to have this ordinance approved, I made an amendment. It was brought to my attention by Sam that the way we had that ordinance set, as soon as it passed in our, that would have been the February, it would have gone into effect. But we didn't have any signs, so how would you enforce something that you can't provide for? So I made an amendment and I pushed that out to May 1st is when this will go into effect now. Of course, it got voted and approved. So that gives us time to get these signs ordered, get them in place, so that May 1st hits, we can start going on with this. Looking at and we kind of glossed over the actual appearance, you know, what was on the signs, both here and in the subcommittee for that matter. And when we got to looking at it, what Sam had just kind of thrown together for us just to have something to look at was just the seal. And in the size of that, you really couldn't make out a lot. This gives, I mean, exactly what you're doing, exactly, you know, public notice, try to get your attention and give you all the pertinent information of who to contact in order to get further information. Still has that header across the top that they'll be able to change out, whether it's a site plan, rezoning, that sort of thing.
So why is the red one there? I guess that's your.
That would be the header that would go up.
Oh,
to the
okay,
top.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
and those are interchangeable, so you'd have one main sign, and then you'd have different ones of those depending on what they were having done.
I like that. I mean, it gives all your pertinent information, the address, phone number. Yeah. I mean, someone interested, that gives them all the information they need to check further.
It's not like those little bitty signs we had before, this will give it more.
And they are, as we had in the ordinance, these are gonna be 24-inch by 24-inch, so 2-foot square. And by doing the red header across the top, you know, it kind of gets your attention of, you know, that's
Kind of
important
like danger or stop, you know.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
It makes it really hard for a neighbor to say, well, I didn't know, which was the whole point of this ordinance.
Yeah.
Spend 40 years in the school system. The words, "I didn't know," are imprinted on everyone's mind. I'm telling you, it ain't ever going away. That's the universal excuse for anything. So as much, you know, we're doing our very best
Exactly.
to create an alternative, an answer to that, but it'll still be used.
It's still better than what we have, so I think it's good.
Oh, I think they're really good. Yeah, I like these a lot. I guess it's the question before us tonight to say yay or nay.
Yes, and the only thing that I would point out is that I think the telephone number needs to be larger. I think when viewing this from the street, they're not gonna be able to really see the numbers, and we definitely don't wanna create any unsafe
I think
driving conditions.
the address is probably, doesn't need to be, I agree that. The phone number might need to be almost as big as public notice.
And I think what we can do there is take the phone number and put it on top and make it as big as your codes and zoning font size.
Oh, okay.
So you would have, you know, that public notice, then just a little smaller font, that there's the phone number, and then your address would be that size font below that.
Yeah, I think that's.
I think it will all fit on there.
I think Rosalie had a very good point there.
Yeah, that works.
Everybody like that?
Yeah.
Okay. That was an easy one.
We're considering this a codes and zoning discussion? What was this at?
This is, just sign approval for,
The first one.
for zoning, not zoning, but for, planning commission notifications or, because it won't always be zoning.
It's under the printed agenda.
Public hearing sign design approval, Mitch, if you look at it on your agenda, it's probably the best way to state it. Are we done with that one?
I believe so.
All right, commercial building design guidelines.
Can I suggest, I think the zoning and codes, was that the discussion we wanted to talk about the property maintenance from last month?
Which
That's-
one? The third one?
Yeah. Did we want to move that up before the long discussion?
Okay, yeah.
If that works. So I think-
Everybody okay with
Yeah,
that?
we don't want to make you
Move
sit
number
for
3
so
up
long
to
again.
number, oh, okay, sure.
He was very patient last month.
Exactly. The codes and zoning discussion,
Yeah.
I think this is about, what, like mowing and,
Yeah, but the grass, and talking with Rosalie and Sam before he left, I think there's a better way of doing this instead of doing it through codes and zoning. I think it's something that we can handle in-house in just our subdivision requirements. You know, for the sidewalks, we already had a provision in there that if your property was already on an adjoining, already infrastructure that's in place, you don't have to do sidewalks. We gave that exemption for that type of subdivision. I think doing that for the mowing on a undeveloped lot over, 5 acres would accomplish the same thing. Now, Mr. Helsler's issue, he's got an agreement in his subdivision that all the lots will be maintained. So it wouldn't affect him, no matter if we get a zoning or through the subdivision. So that's something that has been brought to his attention and explained to him. But for the rest of us in the county who might run into the same issue, it would kind of separate that. And Jim had brought something else up, but the separation between a subdivision, say, where you're having to bring in infrastructure like a Thoroughbreds was or Hickory Ridge, versus like Freedom Farms, where they're just splitting up existing land, they're not putting in new roads, you know, they're not running their own sewer lines for the most part, you know, that sort of, you know, the difference between one subdivision versus another. And I'm wondering if that might be something that we do consider down the road of making that distinguishment between the two types of subdivisions, and maybe where we already have done exemptions for the sidewalk, we do an exemption for the larger properties that are just undeveloped, waiting to be developed. I'd like to get everyone's thoughts on that.
And I can tell you, I found 2 examples. It was slightly difficult to find this within the zoning and codes world, but I did find 2 examples, and they were located in one municipality's municipal code and within a county zoning ordinance, is the 2 places I was able to find it.
So this doesn't exist much anywhere.
It's difficult to find, or it's done through like a property management, like a building code style, sort of separate entity than zoning department. But I did find 2, I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt the discussion, I was just adding to the two places it was found, but I did find they're fairly similar requirements for grass and weeds, and similar to, I think, the place where we snagged in what the current Hartsville-Trousdale requirements are was that it said all major subdivisions, which is anything over 3 lots, essentially 2 or 3 lots. And it didn't make a distinction for size, and we were talking about those 5-acre lots, it's kind of silly. So both of these communities, this is Portland, Tennessee for the municipal community, and Wilson County, both had something. And both of them do say a major subdivision, but the Portland indicates that the entire area of any lot, parcel, or tract containing 2 acres or less. And then Wilson County says, on any tract of land in Wilson County on which a major subdivision of land has been approved by the planning commission and subsequently recorded, where the average created lot size of lots within the subdivision is less than 2 acres. So they all require, it's for small lots only, and they exempt anything above 2 acres. But they do have some specific standards for Portland, for example. So weeds and other similar regulated vegetation can't be higher than 12 inches. Otherwise it's considered a public nuisance, and this is required for any lot less than 2 acres. Requires that within 25 feet of any street right-of-way or within 25 feet of any building on any lot, parcel, or tract containing more than 2 acres, or within 25 feet of an adjacent property line at the request of the owner regardless of acreage. So that's when it's required to be mowed. And then they have some more standards for when 2 or more continuous lots shall be treated as 1 lot by this section. But yeah, I can get this to you guys. I just kind of created it this morning, so
the other issue that Rosalie actually brought to my attention with this is when the county accepted the new building codes, they also brought in the new maintenance codes, the national maintenance codes. In the national maintenance codes, they actually address grass maintenance and weed maintenance. And so we would actually have to, anything we would do for subdivisions, we still would have to do, I guess, an ordinance, Keelan, how we would, to address the.
Since the commission adopted the national.
Exactly.
Anything we do differently, we would have to do an amendment, or I mean, a separate ordinance to change it.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
Probably right if the county commission adopted all of that.
And that is another thing that I'm running into, is because that's not something that we have on the website, correct, Rosalie?
The property maintenance
Yeah,
code, or,
the property maintenance code.
no, it's not on the website.
And so a lot of people don't even know we have that. I've run into other commissioners that had no idea that we even had such a thing. And some of them weren't, I mean, the majority of them weren't even around when we adopted that. That was in 20, I think, when we adopted the 18 standards.
It's about half the commission's new since then.
Exactly. And so I'm hoping to be able to get some of that, get with Amy to try to get some of that posted along where we have our other ordinances posted and just kind of key that in. But the time of getting that all scanned in out of the book is what I seem to be running up into. No one in the county right now seems to have extra time.
So they adopted the entire, the 2018 building codes.
Yes.
Yes.
Are those not available online somewhere? Do you
No,
only have?
It's not available online somewhere, but by law, we are to have it in the office so
Oh.
that people can come to the office and view it.
But if it's not any different from the national version, is there? You should be
I
able to
just
find
actually
that
haven't
online.
Googled it to see if I
She's
can
saying
find
if
it
you
up
could
to.
find it somewhere, then you could put copy and paste or just.
Just
Google it.
convert it into
Convert.
Word and throw an amendment in there and repeal or replace, something like that. I believe I've looked at them online. That's because I did this while we were in Portland. We adopted the same building codes and I took a glance through them and I believed they were, there's a PDF online. That's yours.
That's mine.
It would
Oh,
be
okay.
a lot easier.
Not that version, but I believe there is a version online that you would be able to download and make amendments to.
If you would forward that to Mrs. Thomas's county email, I will make her aware of that and get that posted.
Okay,
Because I'll just get added, she'll have to add that to the website.
and this is just one page of one chapter, just dealing specifically.
Oh, I thought you had found the PDF for the.
No, I was wrong. That's
Oh, no,
Rosalie's
okay.
personal
We can
version.
pay.
Okay,
Get that.
we'll look into that then.
Sure.
Now, if I understood you correct, this gentleman's issue, you said that because of a agreement between all the property owners in his subdivision or?
That, yeah, his subdivision, and it lasts 25 years.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so,
after 25 years, it won't be an issue for him anymore, but until then, but it's no longer a county issue, it's between him, it's a civil between him and his neighbors. So,
so no matter what we pass, it doesn't,
because right now he has to, because of the maintenance code, he has to do what the county says. And because of his subdivision regs that he signed when he bought his place, he's got civil with his neighbors. So he's getting from both sides.
And apparently there's like 2 different covenants that have been recorded.
Okay.
so,
So there's not really much we could do.
obviously, we're gonna come up with something.
Yeah,
But that's really
yeah,
not gonna help him a whole lot.
Codes now.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's one of those things when you buy property, pay attention to the covenants that you sign. Landowners, when they subdivide, can put all kinds of restrictions in that have nothing
That's
to do
true,
with the
that's
county
true, but deed
regulations.
restrictions is right.
All right, well, I can get you these too if you want to look at the 2 examples I found.
Please.
I can get it to everyone, of course, but,
I think the proposal that he came up with, that wording was pretty good. To still do the 25-foot around, that kind of gives that, help to the neighbor of, look, I'm not trying to,
Right,
and
I agree, I mean.
push rats and whatnot into your, field mice and whatnot, but yeah, I was really hoping that we were gonna be able to just take care of that in our subdivision regs, and then found that, well, it's by ordinance, and we still have to send it for the full commission.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be I hope it won't be an issue, because we're kind of giving less regulation on larger properties, but
Well, the way I would address that to the commission would be, you got it already.
Mhm.
We're just trying to make it more usable for Travis County.
Yep.
Is the way, and if they don't want to do that, that's fine. You gotta go by what you've already adopted.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get around that. You've
Exactly.
already adopted it.
we're just trying to make it a little easier.
Right,
Because
right.
I'm guessing a lot of them didn't know it was in there when they
Probably
adopted it. They
Probably not.
just voted to go with the.
These are the
building
new
code.
standards, we need to adopt these.
Yep.
Right. And that's, that's the way the commission operates a lot of times, is they just don't have the time or take the time. I'm sure when Tommy and them presented the water plan for the next, ever how many years it was presented, very few of them actually read it, I would think. I'm not picking on water, I'm talking anybody who's on the plan.
Yes.
Okay, are we through with that one?
but that's all I had. I just
Okay.
wanted to let you guys know what I had found out.
Okay. All right, so last month, we got into some really good preliminary discussions on building design guidelines. I remember us talking about how I particularly like Springfield, Tennessee's, the way they listed them as primary, and they even had I don't remember the verbiage right now, I believe it was, I don't think banned, but what was that word they used? That you could,
Preferred,
there was
limited,
preferred, limited, and that third,
prohibited.
prohibited, that's the word I was looking for. I liked that verbiage, that's simple, it's easy to understand. You know, you can look down through there and see, okay, Hartsville, Trousdale County, this is what they prefer, and here's your limited material, and then down here, there ain't no ifs, ands, and buts about it, it's prohibited.
Right.
I like that, I think that's simple, easy to understand, if y'all like that. You just gotta figure out which ones go in each area.
Right. Well, so sort of the way I've laid it out, and I've included for us a little bit of a list of what we decided we wanted to talk about, and we're slowly crossing them off the list, just in case you guys like me needed to see that we're making headway. But firstly, we did discuss last time offsets, and we decided that we wanted to keep that section. We didn't want to require offsets, we wanted to give more of an option of offsets, kind of interspersed with more facade elements. So the way I've structured this architectural requirements section is having A be facade elements. And so that is saying, and we discussed last time, so I have my notes are required that the facade be broken up with architectural elements offsets as an option, but not a requirement. So I've come up with all road fronting exterior walls must incorporate facade elements to break up the scale and materials of all exterior walls. Facade elements include, but are not limited to, exterior wall offsets, balconies, awnings, canopies, covered porches or arcades, varied roof heights, which if you don't know what a covered porch or an arcade, it's like sometimes Kroger, well, or at least Kroger in the Midwest, I'm not sure if I've seen one down here, but the doors will be offset under, like, in the building a little bit, where there's an awning. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this, but the building envelope, the bottom floor of the building envelope where the doors are is pushed back a bit, so you can walk the entire facade under a roof, but outside. Does that make sense?
Like Food Line and Piggly Wiggly, Food Lane. You know, you go up there to Food Line, you can walk the entire sidewalk, but to go into Food Lane, you have to go through 2 side doors. Whereas at Piggly Wiggly, you can walk the entire sidewalk, but it's 2 front doors going straight. Is that what you're talking about?
I believe so, yeah, so that's what a covered porch or arcade, when it comes to commercial design, that's what that is. So then we also have varied roof heights, pilasters, columns, display windows, outdoor seating, recesses or projections in keeping with the scale of the building, peaked roofs, unique architectural details in keeping with the scale of the building, and other features designed to add scale and visual interest to the facade. So that's fairly vague, gives a lot of subjects, like a lot of planning commission discretion, yeah. But includes offsets as a possibility, but not a requirement. So let me know if any of those sound strange, or if you want me to come back with photos of all of those things, if that is helpful.
Well, I think giving them the option of doing an offset if they want to or not, you know, we're just giving companies a list of ways that they can design their building. Instead of, you gotta do it this one way and this one way only.
And I think the more options we can give them, the way we have here, the easier it is for them to comply with their existing building model.
Right.
Yeah, and I would say, because I know when these were created in the place that I took many of them from, it was designed to cover majority of like typical blueprints from a lot of major chains kind of thing. So different places will have different building types. So this covers about the vast majority of classic, typical.
That's good, because they haven't, most of those you see, they're pretty standard as you go around.
Yeah.
That's good.
So it would require these things, but it also allows for them to use some of the things they already sort of have in their toolbox.
Yeah, and you might have addressed this further into the packet, and I haven't gotten to it, but, where it says facade elements, on last meeting, I think we came up with road fronting.
Right, so
So
I
that
called
is-
them facade elements and then specified all road fronting exterior walls.
I think that,
Yeah.
I think that does the same thing as what we were trying to get at.
Okay, do you want facade elements to be changed to something else? I can,
I'm putting that caveat in there, I think that does address
Yeah,
our,
I think you-
what we
I
were
think you
discussing
did.
last time.
okay,
I just missed that.
oh, that's good. No, I remember that was definitely one of the notes.
Sir, we're sorry we weren't able to
That'd be fun, thank you.
help you out there.
All right, well, any comments for bringing this back for the third time? You guys, anything change?
I think that's good.
I like
Y'all-
that, yeah.
Y'all like that?
All right, so then the meat and potatoes of tonight's discussion
That's good. I
is.
hadn't had supper.
All right, so exterior building materials, this would be a section under architectural requirements. So like we've discussed, and I'm just gonna read through them so we're all exactly on the same page. We have them listed in 3 categories. So preferred wall materials shall be used for a minimum of 60% of all road fronting exterior walls, but may be used on any wall of the structure. So I'd love feedback on the percentage and also on the placement. So these preferred wall materials are for the road frontage exterior walls, but may be used anywhere.
I believe 60 won the vote last
It
time,
did.
so.
Okay,
It did.
just make sure
I
we're,
mean, just because, you know, we lost a guy that voted 60 and it might come to a tie, there's no, the majority voted for 60. I say we just stick with that.
okay.
If that's a,
That is what I have in my notes. We landed on 60
we
last time.
did, we voted, actually voted.
All right, and then limited wall materials shall only be used on up to 40% of all road frontage exterior walls and all of the exterior side or rear walls not facing a road. So 40% of anything facing a road and 100%, up to 100% of any side or rear wall for limited. And then prohibited wall materials shall not be used. Proposals using different exteriors may be considered on a case-by-case basis, provided it meets the purpose and intent of the overlay district, which that needs to change. That is a copy paste.
So basically, what she's saying is that the sides of the building that you can see from the road will be preferred. The sides you can't see could be limited. But they could put the preferred all the way around if that's what they'd rather do.
And they could put up to 40% of the limited on the road.
Right, on the road,
Right.
right,
Yeah,
right.
but not the majority.
These are just the minimum standards we're asking for.
Exactly.
All right, so then I've included these cute little pictures of all the different, it was kind of fun, it was educational for me to run through and try to
I
find
can even
photos.
see that.
Yeah, no problem. So the preferred wall materials that we had listed from Springfield, and I've just left them as Springfield had them. But feel free, let me know if there are things we want moved around. So brick, which we all know what brick is, stone, we all know what stone is. Fade resistant quick brick is, like the hardy board of bricks. And it's like, more uniform than, I guess, sort of classic brick that you imagine.
That's what's on the elementary school. isn't it?
Yeah, you see it on a lot of schools. Real brick.
Just real brick.
Okay, so I'm confused on this quick brick. It's real brick also. I mean, they are bricks,
I believe it may not be,
just a different material that makes up the brick.
well, yeah, so I think what it is, it's shaped like brick, but it may actually be like a full wall.
Okay, so it's like a
Like a
panel.
preformed
that-
panel.
Yeah, with like
Okay.
4 by 8
stuck
feet
on
or
bricks,
something.
not
Okay.
full rectangular bricks. Does
So
that make
it-
sense? More
Not
like
brick and
tiles.
mortar, each one.
Right, more
Yeah.
like tiles that look like bricks.
Okay,
Elementary school's real
yeah, it's
brick.
full. I was looking at the coloring and the pattern of it. That's what came to mind, and so I just wanted that clarification of,
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a very typical, I mean, the classic brick looks very nice. This is for a little bit more of a uniform.
I like the inclusion of fade resistant on all that.
Then we also have fade resistant artificial stone, same idea. It's the stones that are more like tiles. We have architectural panels, and this one was slightly difficult to figure out exactly what they meant, but what it comes down to is like, all I can think of is like Dunkin' Donuts will have, it's wood colored, but
It's like a veneer on a metal panel, is that?
yeah, I think it's a metal panel, but it's designed to look textured like a wall material, but it's their panels.
Well, if it's a metal panel, even if it's, if we're gonna put metal in the prohibited,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, we prohibited it just like that.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Well, I
personally,
guess-
I don't either, I mean, what this picture looks nice,
Yeah.
but I still don't want a metal panel sticking up there. Yeah. Again.
Well, and it may not be made out of metal, I'm not sure exactly.
Okay.
It might be plastic, it
No,
might be,
you see these down in Nashville, on some of the newer buildings.
Oh, yeah.
You'll see these panels that she's got pictured here, and that is, it's kind of, it's a metal backed with like a wood veneer. I've seen some have maybe
I
even
can see
stone.
that on the limited.
okay, possible limited. Do you have any discussion on that? Does anybody?
I mean, if it's metal though, to me,
Yeah.
it still needs to be
It's
prohibited.
still- Yeah.
But it's a finished
It's a
metal.
finished metal.
It's not gonna be like barn side metal.
Like aluminum, metal
This is
siding.
nice.
Yeah, I have approved this previously on a Dunkin' Donuts, which is why it sticks in my mind, and it has the feeling of almost like linoleum kind of
Yeah,
vinyl-y
the outside of
feel
it.
to it.
And the only way you would know it's a metal panel is if you got up and you actually looked at the seams, you would see where the metal is there. And
Or stuck a magnet to it.
So do we have
so do we want to take a vote on where to put that?
yeah, limited or preferred? All those in favor of preferred?
It's fine with me, just call it first.
It's a vote, right? If
Okay,
I'm okay with preferred.
if you think if you're okay with that preferred, raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3,
But how are we
4,
gonna label
5.
that? You know, as metal, we have metal non-preferred later, how are we gonna
Well,
differentiate?
that's not gonna be the same.
Yeah, I
A builder's
think-
gonna know what architectural panel
They'll have
is.
to put-
They're gonna know it's
Yeah,
something.
Yeah, I think,
Well, those wanted it limited, raise your hand.
sorry, I
We lost.
should've.
No, hey,
That's what we're doing.
hey, that's why you vote.
All right, and then the last one is party panels, which I think we're all pretty familiar, but it's those like cement boards that are meant to look like wood siding.
Yeah, we talked about these
Yeah.
before.
They're starting to be
We
used
thought they
around
would
town a
be
lot more.
preferred, wouldn't it?
I've seen them required, I've seen vinyl siding completely prohibited and only hardy board allowed in a couple of places.
Oh, yeah, I mean, hardy boards, I mean, it's just a good, solid, everybody good with hardy board in the preferred? Okay.
All right, so limited wall materials, this is where it's gonna get a little bit more, actually, ignore where it says 25% of what are inside, that is another.
Did you have a question, Dave?
I will, then.
Oh, okay, okay, I thought you said something else. Okay,
So for limited wall materials, which, just to remind us, that's 40% of the road-facing walls, or up to 40%, and then up to 100% of side and rear walls. So our first one here is concrete or split-face block, which again is similar to the tile idea of the bricks from before, but this is designed to look like concrete blocks.
I've noticed there's a hole built out close to where I live. Those two little holes right down below the school, and they have that on their lower part of the building, like the basement part. They have that look,
and that's a residential,
yeah.
we're.
I know, but I mean,
I see some commercial.
I mean, it looks fine.
That's pretty, that's pretty
Paint
standard.
too, it's really nice.
A lot of people use that in residential for the foundation
Yeah.
instead of a,
Regular concrete blocks.
right,
Or brick over it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty common one.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, for commercial as well as residential.
Keelan, on this one, I know there's also cinder blocks that have that same finish, that same rough look to them. Would that also?
That's what I was. That's what's on the house.
So,
Yeah,
So
will
that's,
that follow into
that's a
the,
different material, isn't it?
well, so that's listed under the prohibited, and that's the unsurfaced or unpainted concrete blocks.
Okay.
But
Is that
unsurfaced, these can be surfaced. If
Yeah.
you got a surface concrete block, it'll go. Just the unsurfaced, if it's a flat
So-
concrete block, it's not approved.
Well, so this one says concrete or split face block. So do you want it to say, specifically say surfaced concrete?
yes,
Okay, got you.
that way there's that distinguishment between the two there.
Good point.
Very good.
That makes sense.
Easy enough. Then we also have hard coat or textured stucco, and I've included one that's got a couple different styles of stucco there. That's pretty standard for commercial buildings as well. We also have underneath that the exterior insulation finishing system, which took me down quite a rabbit hole, and I've learned a lot about these. Essentially, it's stucco. So,
It's
I was gonna say, I can't see the difference.
yeah, it's pretty much stucco. It's just a
Stucco
layering
provides-
system of how they put it on the building, but it's pretty much
Is it
stucco.
not a problem with that flaking off? Is there not?
No, I think it's actually a bit hardier than regular stucco.
I'm not familiar with this, curious.
Yeah, it's quite, the thing that makes it an EIFS is the way that it's layered on.
The worst thing I've noticed with stucco and something like that, you know, it's on the middle school, and it's connected to the elementary school on that front, and it just gets dirty. That's the biggest, it shows up really bad, you know. But the material's fine, you know. That's a maintenance issue.
All right, and then the last one we have is hardy or cement.
Cementitious?
Thank you. Who did this last time? I did not mastered how to say it. Cementitious siding. That's.
Hardy's a brand.
What's the
isn't it?
difference in the Hardy panels and the Hardy?
You know, I wasn't totally able to determine that. They essentially seem to be this similar thing. I think this may be
There is a difference
Yeah.
between the two products. I only know because I helped install when I was much younger. The Hardy panel is, so the dorms at Cumberland University over in Lebanon, you'll notice they've got the big panels, and then they've got like a 6-inch or an 8-inch trim panel that goes over, and we've got them, they arched which way. That's just a solid sheet of Hardy board down, and then we overlap the seams when we put that up. So that's a full panel, where the siding is just like 8-inch strips that looks like wood, but it's siding.
So it's just a slightly less, or
It's the
slightly.
same product.
It's something that
It's
would be
just different
good for
layout.
the limited, but probably not for the preferred.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah.
like it just.
Was
could
there any
possibly-
difference though? I mean, when you
Yeah.
go to hang it, can you tell a difference?
My only thought was that
Yes,
it,
because the pictures, what she has here is the same siding layout as that's what she has on the siding.
well, my guess would be that this
You see what I'm saying?
cementitious
I mean, I've
siding,
hung Hardy board before. I just was curious if, I mean, to me, it's,
The building material is the
Seems like
same,
it's
it's
the
just
same,
probably, obviously,
It's
there's
the way
some
it's
difference, or they wouldn't
Yeah.
be listed differently.
Yeah, instead of a panel, it's cut in strips.
look any different though.
What difference does it make to us if they put it in panels?
My
that's
guess
my
would be
question. You know,
leaking.
one's cheaper than the other, and it's, you're getting
Hey,
the same.
she's got a
look.
good point here.
my guess would be that the possibility of leaking or having those individual panels fall apart is higher
It
when
is.
they're
Exactly.
individual
Where
panels
it's a
than one.
complete panel.
Right, so maybe it's cheaper to buy it this way and you can do a smaller amount,
Yeah, because in the
something like
siding,
that,
But
but
I mean, what
it's,
does it matter to us if it leaks? That comes to the owner of the building.
Well,
We
we
don't
can
want
make them build a
deteriorating
better.
buildings though in the county that we have to
Well, I mean,
enforce
right.
standards.
Well, that's part of the building.
Well, let's just settle it with a
Builders
vote.
Inspectors would.
How many of you want to keep Hardy panels in the preferred and the EIFS, no, I'm sorry, the cementitious siding in the limited?
Keep them separated.
Keep them separated. If you want to keep them separated, raise your hand. 1, 2. How many of you want to keep them, make them the same? Okay, same one.
so I will remove this from
Can I
limited.
ask a question? Stucco, what do we come on stucco?
It's a
Where's it
limited, it's a limited.
Okay. Good.
It being at 40%.
Yeah.
yeah. And I'll try to get by, Hardy, Cumberland, and take a picture of those buildings, just to have something to show everyone.
That'd be cool.
Well, I promise you, what's there now is at least 25 years old.
That's what I said,
So-
it's more standard and it stays that way longer.
All right, and then, so prohibited wall materials, we have vinyl siding, aluminum or metal siding, as you would see on like a pole barn, unsurfaced or unpainted concrete blocks, plain plywood, wood shakes, which was one I was actually kind of surprised. I've seen some interesting buildings completely done in wood shakes.
I don't like them.
Don't like it. I'm also from Michigan. I think my experience is seeing them like cabins in northern Michigan, so.
I've seen them several places around the country.
In the right setting.
In the right setting, perhaps
Yeah,
that's just me.
yeah.
I just don't think they're attractive, they start looking worn as they age.
All right, well, they are currently in prohibited. We also have asphalt shingles and cementitious siding, which,
It's the same thing. as-
once again,
You already said that over here on the other side.
yeah, so I'm not really sure where exactly in Springfield's code, what the intended difference was.
Springfield has them in 2 different districts.
In three,
Three
it's
different
hardy
areas?
panels are preferred,
There's gotta
hardy
be a big
siding is
difference. It
limited.
would
The
seem to me.
material, that when you're messing with the cement, it's a different, it's not
It's
actually like
not
a
hardy
hardy.
brand.
Well, it's not a concrete, it's more of a fiber type material.
Okay, well,
It's a
And so,
composite.
yeah, if it's not painted, as the paint starts to fade and chip off, if water comes in contact, it starts becoming swelled and almost like an MDF type product.
Well,
So
in the
there is a difference
photos-
between it and hardy.
The photos I was able to see,
how are we, I mean, the wording's the same, we're gonna have to differentiate it somehow.
So based on the vote we did, you could put hardy in the preferred, and then your cementitious siding, and just leave it over in the prohibited.
Yeah, I
That way
would
you're
agree.
separating those out,
Yeah, I would agree.
instead of having both of them that was listed in the same.
yeah, because it doesn't say anything
All
about
right.
cementitious within the.
Just so I understand, are you talking about now leaving hardy in the preferred?
Yeah.
And cementitious in the prohibited,
Correct.
Yes.
And
from both sides? From,
Old school that's up there on Carol Carmen's property, they put hardy board on it. If you drive that way, you can see how it looks like.
hardy board's very.
I've got hardy on my
Hardy
house.
board's fine,
Like I said, there's a
it's
difference between the hardy board and then,
Yeah.
and you can really tell by the way the stamp the grain is on this. That's how I was able to recognize it as another product that I've had to work with. And it's, like I said, it's more of a
Now,
fibrous.
we're not, I assume there's different brands. Hardy is a brand, isn't it?
It is a brand.
It is.
I mean, we're not telling someone they have to use that brand, are we? I mean, there could be another company that makes something that's just the same.
If they make the same concrete board, then that's really what we're.
Well, that's what I'm
They just
saying.
make the same standard, as long as it's the same standard. It's-
Well, that's what I'm thinking, do we,
Well, so I
kinda like
think
making a Xerox.
cementitious is the word that
differentiate?
compensate,
Encompasses.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I've been talking too long, I swear. Encompasses hardy board. So I think what we were seeing for Springfield, they had hardy panels as preferred, hardy or cementitious siding as limited. So that's the individual pieces, and then cementitious siding as
See, I can't see how
prohibited.
you would
Oh, I
have
see, the
both.
difference is the wording panel.
is panels versus siding, but then also siding. So
I think this last is always more like this, 4x8 sheet plywood. It's cut.
This right here.
Well,
It's just
yes,
cut
it's
into
the same.
strips.
it does.
No, this
Yeah.
one right here is
It's
not cut into
cementitious
sheet, it's just one sheet.
I'm just wondering how
Yeah, that side.
we're gonna differentiate.
That's the
the
This right here just like,
Probably would need to look at.
we see it on a lot of outbuildings, that stay up and down.
And the other's really a hardy plank, which is made of
Yeah.
fiber
Yes,
cement.
that's
Yeah.
what I thought.
Okay, so I,
That's what we talked about is Keelan's gonna look into, obviously, there's a difference. Since it's in 3 different levels.
Yeah.
So she's gonna look at the composition of the 3, and that may be where we have to differentiate is depending upon the composition.
And really, to me, the differentiating is the maintenance levels on them, because because
Probably.
the lower maintenance level materials are gonna last longer. And so for some of some particular property owners who might be coming in to do something as cheap as possible, just to get a business up, it kind of protects the county
From
and makes them have those
That's how
sort of
we're,
standards.
that's how this came about.
So
This one, it doesn't look like there's any difference.
but looking at it's not the same as understanding the description of the material.
Well, that's
of the
what
There's gotta be a
That's what I'm
difference.
trying to read.
It's a fiber cement plank formed by combining wood pulp with Portland cement. And it's gonna be a piece of siding, it's a board versus a whole panel that's a complete unit.
Well, let's let Keelan look at those differences, come back with us next month with what the differences are, and we make a final decision then.
Yeah, I could drill more into it. And then the last one that we have for prohibited was plastic or fiberglass, which I was able to find my interpretation of that as far as building materials was those sort of wavy plastic.
Like on greenhouses and whatnot.
Yeah, my parents made a chicken coop out of it when we were kids.
Are we good with these guys? And she's gonna come back with more information on the hardy versus cementitious.
Alright. So I have roof lines and I also have the dark skies ordinance for tonight. I know we're getting into time.
Okay.
Do you guys want to look at both of them or long one, short one first?
Which one's the line?
Dark skies by a mile.
That's just lighting direction, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot to that.
Yeah. How much is those?
There's a lot to it, and I've created
Yeah.
3 options for us.
My
to
assumption
consider.
that just turn your lights pointing downward is too simple.
Yeah.
Well, I gave us 3
I was
options. One of
afraid of
them, we
that.
can go that direction. The other way, we can go full dark skies compliance, which is a lot.
Mr. Chairman, I can say though, in the meeting we had with Enbridge, the natural gas company wanted to do the compressor out on the Bratton farm, they've actually already included the regulations for dark sky on their property as proposed. So this is something that, the national companies, they're already used to dealing in other municipalities and are already, their proposals already include these.
Well, and what I found,
It's
and
great, I thought.
Let's just go on into that then, since we've already started.
you wanna do
Dark
skies?
sky, yeah.
Okay, well, so Metro Nashville has adopted a dark skies ordinance, which is what I kind of just pulled and highlighted for you guys. So I'm just gonna run really briefly through the entirety of the Nashville version. So section 1 is parking lots. So they go through and they require that the luminaires, which is the lighting device, has to have a bug rating, which is a black light uplifting glare, which is essentially pointing it at the ground, of 0, which means that it's straight at the ground, with external shields. They require that it have a correlated color temperature of 3,000 Kelvin or below. They require that principal walkways and parking shall have a maintained minimum illuminance of 0.2 foot candles at grade. Average light level is not to exceed the average lighting level set forth in the table below. And then they include for rural, suburban, urban, and downtown, the different foot level, or foot candles that are allowed. They require that spill light at the property line not exceed 0.5 foot candles, which is very normal. They have exceptions. They require that the lights be controlled by occupancy sensors or timers after business hours or between the hours of 12 and 6 a.m. At a minimum, occupancy sensors or timers may turn lights off or dim by at least 30% during periods of no occupancy. So then they also include section 2, which has a bunch of definitions. They're a little bit excessive in my opinion, but they certainly leave no questions. Then we have section 3, which is exempt outdoor lighting. So essentially, what we get down to is temporary lighting for theatrical, television performance areas, construction sites, those sort of like temporary wheeled-in spotlight type things. Lighting that's otherwise required by for a life safety purpose, for emergency conditions, lighting within the downtown code in all specific areas, lighting at the stadium, which is unbelievably bright, and lighting on property owned by the Nashville airport. I think all of those, the 4 and 5 don't really relate to Hartsville-Trousdale, but the other ones all seem pretty reasonable. As far as prohibited outdoor
What,
lighting.
5?
5?
Would this affect the football field?
What
Public
about our street lights?
softball, baseball?
What all our street lights, does this affect all our street lights that we had to grant?
Well, this is going forward, so anything
Yeah, that would
already
be
installed,
grandfathered in.
yeah.
But I'm just saying, if at some point in time, the lights at the football field will have to be upgraded, so they would fall under this.
Well,
I would assume that the football field would eventually just do the same lighting that's over at that they just put at the Little League fields.
And that's what I'm saying, they probably will, but it is,
But these are exemptions that she's giving you. These are not.
oh, okay.
yeah, and there
I didn't
was,
think, good point. Thank you. I stand corrected.
no, you're right, there's another section that also, I feel like exempted government buildings. That might have been a different,
Well, I don't think that should be, if we're gonna make.
Yeah, why would we want to exempt
Yeah.
the
We
government?
don't want to do, we don't want
because
to.
they don't want to accrue the cost. But it doesn't seem to be in here. So as far as prohibited outdoor lighting, we have strobe lights and laser lights, including laser light shows and aerial laser lights. Flashing lights, unless temporarily triggered by a security system and extinguished within 30 minutes. Any light that could be confused with a traffic signal, any light that creates disabling or distracting glare onto a public roadway, that would be things that would trigger an epileptic fit. That can be an issue.
Or the LED lights up at the Oldham's Market, if you've been by there anytime
Flash.
soon at night.
They're
They don't
bright as
flash,
heck.
but
You
they're
come out
huge.
this little side road right here, it's right in your face.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
It'll blind you.
So that would hopefully prevent those. And then the use of uplighting, which is, except for when lighting a flag or other governmentally endorsed, other government endorsed symbol. So uplighting is the lighting towards like your house or whatever. So then we have section 4, which is your illumination standards. So they have light intensity and uniformity. They have a maximum illuminated surface light level, and that's at any point in outdoor parking lots, gas stations, drive-ins, drive-throughs. Drive-through canopies is 10-foot candles measured at the ground level, so that's a maximum light level. Total installed initial lumens for all exterior lighting systems shall not exceed the allowed total initial site lumens. So they have a calculation for your initial site lumens, which is essentially like your sun foot candles for the entire site. And that is 7,000 base lumens for all entrances and facades, plus 2.5 lumens per square foot of hardscape. So that's a lot when you're doing these regulations, but that would be if we really wanted to give everybody one amount of light and you can disperse it how you will.
Who measures these?
Well,
That was my question.
so I kind of get into
This
that.
one versus this one's my.
It's a pretty simple little machine that you can buy, and I used to have one when I was a city planner in a city, and you just go out at night and like
It's a little handheld.
point,
Oh, yeah,
just point it at
measure
a
the
thing
foot
and it'll
candle.
tell you.
Yeah, we use it on the football field and stuff.
It's pretty simple
curious,
to
never seen
find,
Yeah.
you just have to have somebody who's has the time to enforce it. So there's an alternative to compliance with these provisions, and that is that you can completely comply with the International Dark Skies Association model legislation. That's a little bit more constrictive. So we also have light direction and control. They put them out on a table, but essentially it's all 90 degrees, which means that it all has to point directly at the ground. They have this correlated color temperature, which I've included in my staff notes down here. I included a guide to foot candle light intensity to give you kind of an idea of what those different numbers mean. and then also a guide to color temperature. So from 1,000 kelvins to 10,000 kelvins, how warm that light is. So, find my place again. So they require that all lighting sources, except for playing fields and public property, blah, 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 has to be at or below 3,000 degrees Kelvin, which looks like that's like a nice warm yellow bug light. So they also have permitted hours of outdoor lighting. So for commercial, no more than 50% of exterior lighting shall be permitted to be illuminated or lighted, or lighting shall be dimmed by 30%, except for 1 hour before the start of business, during regular business hours as determined, and 1 hour following the close of business. So there are some exceptions for safety or security concerns. Property used for, oh, here it is. Property used for governmental and public purposes, any zoning lot on any zoning district used for government or public purposes, except for street lighting, shall comply with the permitted hours and security lighting limitations for commercial lighting zones. Outdoor lighting of playing fields of an organized sporting event on public property may remain illuminated until 30 minutes, 1 hour. I think that's supposed to mean 1.5 hours after the conclusion of an event. You also have standards for light trespass, so all site lighting shall be shielded so that substantially all directly emitted light falls within the property lines. No illumination in an excess of half a foot candle shall be permitted across the boundary of any adjacent residential property or public street. No illumination shall produce direct, incident, or reflecting light that interferes with the safe movement of motor vehicles on public streets. Rope lighting shall not be used on a building, sign, or any property with non-residential zoning located adjacent to an arterial collector. That's those like really bright LED strips that you'll see on like CBD or whatever. They're very bright. So no rope lighting. As far as luminaire standards, so standards for the actual lights themselves, all lighting has to have a full cutoff, which means that if something goes wrong, you have the ability to completely shut it down. It must have a photocell or a timer requirement for parking lot lights, and that's requiring that parking lot lighting shall include blah, 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 timers as needed to regulate the hours of operation. And then canopy requirements. So all canopies must be skirted with a skirt depth of 8 inches or greater as a means to limit light spill to within 10 feet of an area covered by the canopy. So then we also have procedural requirements. I'm sorry, guys, my brain is starting to get really tired. So Nashville requires that you submit for land development, redevelopment, or a new zoning application where outdoor lighting is proposed. Prior to final approval, you have to submit information to ensure that the proposed plan complies with all of these regulations. So a site plan is required, complete with all structures, parking spaces, building entrances, traffic areas, vegetation that might interfere with lighting, and all adjacent uses. Must show existing and proposed luminaires and specify the installed height, pole foundations, method of mounting. So ISO foot candle plots for individual lighting installations or 10 by 10 feet. Illuminance grid plots for multi-luminaire lighting installations. This is a photometric plan. They're pretty common in communities with lighting standards. They're fairly easy for most engineers to put together. It also requires a summary table requiring, that's the maximum and minimum light levels and foot candles and the initial lumens for parking areas, streets, or building entrances, all the things you would specify. A description of each product, post-approval alterations, they also have, so you must submit to the zoning inspector after review by a qualified engineer at the expense of the applicant and approval prior to issuance of a use and occupancy permit. So if you want to change something, it doesn't have to go back through planning commission. It just has to be submitted to the zoning inspector, reviewed by an engineer, and done before you get a use and occupancy permit. There also is specifications for inspections, so the Department of Codes Administration has the right to conduct a post-installation inspection to verify compliance, if appropriate, to require remedial action within 30 days at the expense of the applicant. Violations are punishable by the Metropolitan Code, and variances to the requirements may be granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So, any initial thoughts reading through that?
Is it, what all counties have this? I mean, is this, Wilson have this, Sumner have this, or just Metro Nashville, Davidson County?
I'm not sure exactly which counties have it, but I can tell you many, like Hartsville, many cities have it. I'm not sure how many counties.
Have we had complaints for this? We haven't had a lot?
Yes.
That's been one of the big sticking points with Enbridge. And
I was
they've-
just curious.
And they've agreed to, I mean, that was one of the things brought up in their first meeting, was containing as much light as possible, and they agreed with that from the beginning.
I had my neighbors that, where they put these commercial buildings, it was flooding her house with light, and her husband was dying, and they couldn't do anything about it. So yes, it's,
Even when the Dollar Generals came forward and was presenting their site plan and everything for approval, they also had to submit lighting that they were gonna be doing.
That's fine, I was just curious if it was a common, like, this is common coming in, or other areas are having this same problem.
as we get growth, this is gonna become more dominant.
Right.
Yeah, I would say lighting is definitely gets to be a sticking point in a lot of places. I'm not sure of many counties that have these requirements, but certainly cities.
Cities,
I was
obviously,
thinking
because of
cities,
this
so I was
higher,
thinking Metro.
growth, I mean, higher level of commercial property, of commercial entities.
Yeah, but really anywhere we put our commercial entities, we need to consider that who the neighboring are,
Sure.
and that's what happened out in our area.
Yeah, and that's what, now, do we need one to this extent? Probably not.
Well,
But
I've given
we-
us options.
I know,
Go
that's
through.
why I like that.
No, I mean, this is great, but, I mean, like, look at the options at the back of this. There's options that listed at the back of this, A, B, and C.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I've made up for us to kind of try and
Oh, okay,
compile this
okay,
a little
good,
bit better.
good. So look at those options at the back and see what option,
Yes.
you think would be applicable to Hartsville, Trousdale County. Yes,
Just for clarification purposes, for someone who's just watching this one and not the last 4 months when we've discussed this, we're only talking about commercial and industrial, we're not talking residential.
right,
Right,
Yes.
this is commercial.
that's a good point, and we are on, I mean, people are watching, so yeah, this is commercial entities
And industrial.
and industrial.
So I've broken it out into these three options that you guys can see. So option A, I've titled it the basic commercial light regulations. So these are things that would be low cost on the developer and a low burden of enforcement, but they're less strict. Then we have option B, which I'm calling dark skies light, which is fairly low cost to the developer and requires minimum enforcement after approval. And then we have option C, which is full dark skies ordinance, which would be much closer to everything we just went through for what's in the Nashville Code.
David, what did Enbridge?
The way they're gonna do it is, theirs is set on both motion and timing, so that their lighting will, because they still have security issues that they have to deal with also. So that's gonna be taken care of through the motion side of it. If you're walking through a section, because they're gonna have lights, out in, off from the main, buildings and whatnot. So those, as you go up the drive, they'll kick on as you approach, and they'll kick off as you leave. So that you won't have lights on all the time. Another one was, like I said, with timers, so that after a certain amount of time, they kick on, they'll kick off. So your twilight, your dusk, they won't be on. But they're using the motion and the direction of their light, so that all their light was shining towards their property and not away.
Yeah, I think one thing we have to keep in mind with utilities, this, we're talking Enbridge gas, but electrical and stuff, there's idiots out there that want, for some reason, sabotage.
Right,
That's why
those
the
things.
motion makes a
So
lot of sense.
lighting is a big part of the deterrence.
Safety
To
is
that.
too.
Well, and I would say
Safety is too.
Yeah, exactly, safety, exactly, but.
there are a lot of regulations, like, we didn't dig too deep into it, but the Nashville one does include quite a bit of exceptions for security, in that exempt outdoor lighting, but also they've got it, down when we're talking about, I'm not sure, but they have a couple for safety, for security lights, motion sensors. So long as it goes off after 30 minutes, then it's exempt from having to adhere to the dimming or the
Right.
hours of operation stuff. So we can certainly include some of those safety notes in whichever option we choose.
One other statement on that, being a utility, they didn't have to do that. I mean, you go up to Columbia Gulf, middle of the night, and it's like a football stadium up there. I mean, it is well lit. So the fact that they were able to, not having to do it, and they were already bringing that and saying, okay, this is something everyone else is, putting into an area, I thought was really great. I'm having to educate a lot of my fellow commissioners of the fact that they are a utility, and all the things they're proposing are by the goodness of their heart. They don't have to do any of this, and we can't really make them do it. So, I've been,
They're trying to be a good neighbor.
they are,
Right.
they are.
And,
And so,
I think that's
I
what.
worked on a station, on a compressor station yard for 30-something years. It needs to be done, it's safety.
yeah.
They cutting a lot of corners.
Well,
neglecting safety.
So on Enbridge's system, it's gonna be an enclosed, so your actual working area will be inside a building, which will be fully lit and whatnot
Yeah,
inside the
but you got
building.
valves outside the building.
When you see their proposal, it's very interesting because when you pull, you won't see the exposed pipe. It will not look like Columbia Gulf. They made a very big point about that it's actually, when the drawings they brought, it looks like big red dairy barns. I mean, it is really neat the way that and this is not the only project they've done that way. They, in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, they had another one that was in a rural area, and they did it the same way, and
Blends in with
And
the
it-
background.
yeah, you don't even know it's there.
I suggest, remember me and you met with them after that first meeting. And
Yeah.
the guy asked me, he said, what kind of buildings would you think people around here would want them to look like? I said, hey, we're rural. If you make them look like a barn and blend in, you're talking our language.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's everything but a silo attached to that thing.
The red one looks better.
Yeah, the red one does look better.
This one looks terrible.
Well, I mean, the red barn here is what, like an old
Yeah.
tradition,
Yeah.
All right, so I'll just walk us through, I guess, the two options that we have kind of here. So the basic commercial light regulations, once again, very low cost on the developer, and that cost I took into consideration because the actual, the luminaires themselves, to get the ones that have shields and things like that, it's not actually a big cost increase. The cost comes more from the requirement for the photometric plans, for all of the specs that they have to get, so that the big cost is incurred in the site development plan section, more than the actual equipment. So option A would require parking lots, walkways, and entrances to be illuminated evenly, would require light be directed towards neighboring properties and streets, or
Should be a waste.
away.
Away.
Yeah, I don't know why that says away. Require a timer to shut off light during daylight hours, to include all exempt lighting situations that we discussed, except for the stadium and the certain areas that weren't applicable to us, obviously. So that was the things like safety, that was emergency, life-saving things, construction, lighting. So we also include all prohibited lighting requirements, option to prohibit spotlights. So they did not include commercial spotlights. That's something that I've seen some places will do, some places won't. Nashville didn't have it in it. But something for us to discuss. Do we like commercial spotlights as ones that shoot up and light up the clouds?
I mean, the only time I've ever seen, maybe for a special event, but I can't think of a time we've had a spotlight in Charleston
Does
County.
that prevent the low voltage shooting up on their building?
The uplight, well, I'm not sure if it's exactly the same thing, because those spotlights are like directed light versus just sort of general lighting of an area. They're like a specific circle on the clouds that you
No,
see.
I understand the one you're talking
Right.
about. But
So I
what's
think
the
it wouldn't-
difference in the two?
I think it wouldn't be captured by that uplighting. I think if we wanted to specifically call them out as either prohibited or allowed, we'd need to call them out specifically as spotlights. That's just my feel. So we also have no foot candle maximum requirement. So they would be allowed to light it to as much as they want, so long as it's even. And that is to prevent us from having to have somebody go and do enforcement afterwards with a little foot candle machine and test it all over the place. So option of color temperature requirements, I don't think that would be very hard for them to include. If that's something we want to enforce, that's kind of why I've left that as optional for this option A, because it would require us to enforce it in some way and have some way of saying this is so many kelvins temperature, which could be a burden on Leslie or whoever's stuck having to do these. So all lighting required to be directed at a 90-degree angle to the ground, including hours of operation dimming requirements. So that means that in the evenings, after an hour after close and an hour before opening, they have to have the lights off or dimmed to 50% or whatever it was. I've also included options to include government buildings. Is it something, we want to just exempt ourselves so we don't even have to worry about it, or?
I think we should abide by it if we're going to put all these rules
That
out, we
works.
should abide by
Yeah,
it.
I think so.
All right,
But
so,
this would be new government buildings
yes.
rather than like, because I know
I
they're
don't
gonna
know why
eliminate the courthouse,
Can we
right?
not put something in to bring it into compliance by a certain period of time? To meet what you're
I don't
rolling?
think so, I think you.
Yeah,
It's
you
either grandfathered
Grandfather's
or-
your grandfather, or you're not.
you start to.
It doesn't mean in the commission side of things that we couldn't address that ourselves and have parks, buildings, start making those adjustments.
That's what
to
I'm
meet
saying.
that.
Yeah,
But I don't think
To
that's
meet the
anything
requirement.
that the ordinance could enforce.
No, but I'm just saying, isn't that a way of resolving that? We don't keep the grandfather and keep exempting stuff?
for government buildings only, or for all? I think we'd
For
have
all.
trouble all, but government buildings, you could certainly make an effort to
I mean, I
bring
just
them
think we
in
need to get
compliance.
to a point of where we're driving towards more of where it'll stay that way. There's a lot, just like that gentleman has to work on that 25-year period. If we keep having all these things that are left over and left over and left over, we never get cleaned up.
Well, they'll have to change it though if they come in and do so much of a building, right?
Yeah,
Because we gotta get it up to
40% remodel.
so much, but if they don't change that amount, they can leave it.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean,
I just think if you could put it out there through the commission, some way to 2 years, 3 years down the road, get to compliance.
how can you enforce it though?
Yeah,
It would be
Make people
slightly
like spend all this
challenging.
money.
I don't know.
I think you'll have a
You know
lot less
anybody
chance of
that does
getting it through
I'm just,
No, I
if you
think
don't do the
you
grandfather.
could possibly run into some legal issues. I can't think of exactly where in the
That's what I was
TCA we'd get into some issues, but
The current makeup of the commission will have a lot harder time getting this approved if we don't have that grandfather, if we try to push.
And I'm like, you and Mitch, if we exclude ourselves, then
Yeah, no,
we're just
that's
asking for.
right. I wouldn't exclude government, but
I think that's good. So we also would require full cutoff capabilities, timer controls, and canopies. Site plan must include the prepared luminaires. So this is again to limit the cost to the developer. They would have to show us where they plan on putting lighting. That gives us, if they put it on the property line, we can say, hey, without having to go out and enforce it, I can tell you this is gonna be over 0.5. So that would give us some idea without having to require them to give us a full photometric plan. They'd need a description of the luminaires required with the construction plans. So that'll allow us to tell if they meet the standards for light direction and those sorts of things. So no photometric plan would be required, no inspections required, but staff will reserve the right to come onto the property to ensure compliance with regulations. And then variances would be heard by BZA, with some amendments may be approved by staff post-approval. That gives a little bit of leeway for some of those silly little tweaks.
And you were gonna add in the motion for the safety requirements possibly?
Yes, I will add that to whichever one we choose, so.
I think A just kind of hits everything we've already talked about. I mean, when you start getting into B and C, and that just, Mr. Kerr was saying that it's a little more than what we need.
You get these photometric plans and all that stuff, and who's gonna review them, who's gonna.
Well, I can review them. They're very basic to review. It's just a
But like
grid.
you said, the cost that's
But they're-
associated with having those
Yeah.
done. I'd rather have that money being spent on the actual lighting than I would, you know, just for the plan.
Okay.
Whether y'all see anything in B that you'd like to move up to A? You seem to like A, but there might be something in B that you want to include, move up.
Well, so I can just briefly run through some of the differences. So option B would have a minimum and a maximum illumination of parking lots, walkways and entrances. So less in option A, we only say it needs to be even. We don't say what the maximum is. We have that they required to reduce light to a specific foot candle at all properties. So the other one just generally says can't have any spillover. This one says 0.5 at the property boundary. Require a % dimming after hours of operation and total shut off during daylight hours. The option A only requires total shut off during daylight hours and those business hours. The dimming during business, non-business hours. Include all the exempt lighting situations, include all prohibited requirements, option to prohibit spotlights once again.
I would add the option to prohibit spotlight that first one.
Well, we had it on both.
Oh, okay.
It's just
Okay.
whichever you guys allow them or don't allow them, it's up to you. Then we also have include a light temperature maximum, so that would be essentially to try and ensure more warm light, which is slightly kinder to people and animals' eyes than some of that bright blue light. Then we have all lighting is required to be 90 degrees at the ground, which we have in the other one. Government buildings are required to adhere to the standards, only applicable to new construction, which we have already decided we want to include this in A as well. Require full cutoff capacity, timer control and canopies, which we have in A. Require a photometric plan with the submission of the site plan. And then staff reserves the right to come onto the property and inspect light installations and lumens, but are not required to perform an inspection. And then variances by the BZA. So they're very similar. One just has a little bit more specificity in terms of intensity of light and temperature of light.
That's what I was about to say. The difference is how much light escapes the property. You're talking about there at the property line, only so much can.
But we're supposed to be shining 90 degrees down too. The posts go by, always just shining at the road.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you shine straight down, you're gonna have a lot less
Exactly.
escape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you go at like Bowling Green, they've got some new street lights, and I've seen them in Chicago too. They're like purple. I don't know what they are. And then you go on, they're bright, but you can't really see them until you get right up under them. It's very cool to see. I don't know how to explain them really.
Purple, that's interesting.
I think that's the shading they use off the sides of them because of the dark sky to keep all the light straight down.
To point downward, it's the shielding.
Yeah, well, we do require the shield, we require the 90-degree angles to the ground and the shielding in both A and B.
Well, I like the minimum maximum illumination. I think that would be important in either one of them to me.
Okay, so that one, the only thing that gets into that is to enforce that, we would need to have a photometric plan, and we would have to in some way have the ability to inspect them to require that. That's kind
We're
of.
already having problems with getting ordinances inspected and enforced as it is. I think you're just gonna run into another thing that's not gonna get enforced.
Right.
I
I
We can
mean,
always
and-
amend this if we see it at a later date.
Right.
I
And
mean, you
for
got no
option-
inspection required, but staff reserves the right to go on property to ensure compliance too. So, I mean, if there's a complaint, you can come out there and, you know.
Where was that?
It's on the second one from the last on A.
Yeah, no inspection required, but staff reserves the right to come onto property to ensure compliance with regulations.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Whereas option B has staff reserves the right to come onto property and inspect light installations and lumens.
Well, let's start limiting this down. How many of you prefer A to B?
For a,
How many prefer A? Okay. Looks like the majority. Is there anything in B that anyone sees would like to see in A? I know, Carol said the, first part there, the minimum, maximum illumination of parking lots, that one. And that's the one you said?
And
She
you-
won't- I'm sorry, I was just gonna.
I was just gonna add that you could play, if that is important to you, and I think it is important, I certainly agree. You could play a little planner's poker and put it in there and just not really have much way to
Jeez, babe,
enforce
how do
it,
they
but
know?
it's in there, so hopefully those who are, honest people will adhere to it, and you'll get something out of it. We call it
Well,
planner's
real good
poker.
developers will try to follow it anyway, but if you don't have it, they're not gonna have to.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. Who wants to move, that first bullet there up to, A, require minimum, maximum illumination of parking lot, walkways, and entrances? What Carol's talking about, who wants to move that up to A? I do. Raise your hand.
So what is the, are we gonna add safety to that too?
Safety, I've already noted to whichever
Yes,
one
she's
we
adding
choose,
safety.
we'll
Yeah.
add.
Add safety to it,
Yeah,
yes.
but I think that just kind of encompasses the whole thing with the safety.
Who's gonna decide the minimum and the maximum?
I can bring them to you, there are some fairly standardized.
I remember when she was reading it, you talked about
Right.
their standard regulations for
Yeah, they
what's
have,
considered.
And then if we ever
A
get
minimum
pushed towards the
in
total
max.
dark skies, we'd already have something.
Sometimes.
yeah, so the
Let's
national,
call whichever one we pick, let's not use basic commercial, let's use dark sky.
just go crazy.
No, let's just use the word, the
Oh.
vocabulary. Let's call it dark sky. It may be dark sky light, but I think people will,
yeah. Since it's already a common verbiage that's being used,
right,
just stick with that.
right,
It's just our version of it.
Okay.
right. It's our version of
Of dark sky, yeah.
it. Exactly.
Because these businesses coming in are already mentioning that, the Dollar Generals, they were the first ones to really start talking dark skies, especially when we were asking for a lighting plan.
Yeah, and we brought that up ourselves. The planning commission brought that up to them.
And they've done a really good job on their light placement, even the people who border their property. When you drive past their fence, there's almost like a line there. I mean, it goes dark on their
Right.
side.
And that's what you want it to do.
Dollar General did a good job. I just wasn't expecting,
The building material.
yeah.
I say your bigger corporations and stuff, I mean, they already have this.
Yeah.
So it's your
Oh, they're
smaller
used to it.
guys that's trying to.
Most
they don't
places-
have the hard
Most
time.
places are trying to contain as much light as possible on a commercial lot that they can. That's pretty much am I right? That's pretty
Well,
much
no, and
common.
I would say, like I said earlier, the cost that they're incurring is not in buying the equipment. So changing their standards or the way they typically light places to include that shielding is not a big deal. Where the cost and where they fight back is the requirement of photometric plans and the enforcement of
Having
it.
engineers come
The
out.
engineering
Right, engineering
aspect of it.
Right, so, some places may already have that requirement, because it's really not too much of a cost to them.
So we like that, adding that one, moving that one up.
And I can bring you some options of typical minimum and maximum. Was there anything else? Did we have a thought on spotlights? Specifically calling them
I
out?
would never-
I wouldn't
didn't
want to.
a spotlight.
I'd want to prohibit.
What's the
it.
difference
just
between a
prohibit it.
spotlight and an uplight?
So I think uplights are those small lights that are intended to illuminate like a sign, like a subdivision sign.
How far above the ground it illuminates?
Yeah, and I
The
think it's
difference
not as direct, it's not as, because when
Focused.
you're looking at a subdivision light, it, like, the light is here, and it lights up this whole area. Whereas if you had a spotlight shining there, it would be a circle. So those spotlights are a more
Intensity of.
intense directed light, and I think that's what makes it the difference.
So we're looking.
I would
for
consider
floodlight
right there on
versus
old
spots.
ones a spotlight.
Flood's wider than the spots.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, and those spotlights are intended, like, you don't see them necessarily when you're looking across, but you see them in the sky, like on the clouds.
How,
when they reflect.
if we said no spotlights, how would you differentiate that from somebody just, lighting the side of his building or something like that?
Or his sign going into.
That's my concern, like, you know, I mean, I understand you shooting up in the air and you see a big
Right.
thing from miles away.
And that's what we don't want.
But if you see-
somebody, right, well, like out here at the, well, a lot of places, the pregnancy center out here, you know, they have the two spotlights flashing up on their sign. To me, that's fine.
Yeah, because it's just, the light's just on their sign.
Right.
It's not up in the sky.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I
And
guess.
we don't wanna prohibit that.
Height
Right, I
limit.
agree.
So
So. the
we
height
don't wanna
of-
limit uplighting.
Yeah, so nothing, so lighting that wouldn't go, is it showing 20 foot off the ground?
What about exceeds the building?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that exceeds the building.
something like
Okay,
that.
so the way that, Nashville just has it as no use of uplighting except when lighting a flag or other government endorsed system or symbol. So we would want to allow uplighting.
But not to exceed the height of the building.
Do we want to require it to dim in like dark hours? Or do you want full intensity? I guess it doesn't.
As long as it
I'd say
doesn't
we're not
spill over
running
to
into
somebody
any
else's
issues with
property.
that.
We just have a
As
lot
long
of
as it-
people that just, instead of having a lighted sign, they put a sign up and then they put a spotlight on each side to.
But like a lights, shining on the flag now, that flag will be waving, it's gonna illuminate beyond the flagpole.
That's true, okay. No spotlight, but allow lights,
And flag lights are permissible.
Yeah.
You just say it like that. Because we're running American flag at night, you're supposed to have lights. I don't at home, but I'm supposed to.
not to,
I had one, but
That's,
that
that's,
wind broke it.
the wind's done a lot lately.
But in the Nashville one that she was reading through, it did give an exemption for flags.
Yeah.
Government authorized, so whether it was a state flag or, I don't even have a county flag, do we?
I think we did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one on the courthouse, or was one
There was, unless it got blown away.
Who knows what's in the courthouse anymore? It's been so long since anybody's been in there.
An easy way to clean this up, there's no building allowed in the county over 30 foot tall, so no light exceeding 30 foot tall. Visibility would
I
cover,
used to keep it.
would cover everything.
Yeah, we might build a jail that might be taller.
Well, then they're gonna have to change it, because ordinance says you can't go over 30 foot.
Yeah.
all right, well, I can figure out,
Y'all at the county court, you can end whatever you
I
want.
guess so.
What was
right.
that last time you said it was short?
short?
Is that such a discussion?
I thought there were three
Oh,
things.
Oh,
Full compliance with the dark skies ordinance, which is essentially all of what Metro had.
Oh,
That's our option 3, but it sounds like.
Oh,
we're
okay.
not.
No, we're not.
I think we're more
Okay.
the dark skies light.
All right. Is there anything else from option B that I should bring into option A for us to consider next time?
I think that first dot was the first
Right,
bullet.
that was the main thing I wanted.
Okay, well, that's easy enough. I'll bring one option for us all to look at and review next time.
And then a final option, a final wording on the building materials and that.
Yep, final wording on the building materials and the architectural facade elements, which we will continue to call facade elements.
Guys, we've made good progress with this since we started this.
Cruising.
Really good.
That's why I have put the little, to-do list, so we can
Yeah, that's good.
see that we are
See,
progressing
cross
through
them off,
it.
it makes you feel better.
We have not. Do we want to get into roof lines tonight?
And it was-
Roof lines?
I'm ready to go home.
Just put that on for
We'll
next
have
time.
That is perfectly fine.
The time after.
I don't wanna lose any other members.
I got an hour drive, so I will not complain.
Actually, it's only 8:25.
We make good time through
No,
it.
no,
It should be
sprung
taken.
forward, Johnny, I'm on the new time.
Boy, I wish I could go that quick.
Every half hour we spend here is a half hour I don't have to work on Friday. I'll just give me a half day.
Make motion to adjourn. Second that motion.
We're done, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.